So thanks ever so much for joining us this morning. There is going to be a bit of beeping in the background as people continue to join us. So we're expecting a reasonable turnout this morning. But yeah, appreciate you taking the time. Let me kind of introduce me and us. I'm Neil, account lead at TradeFlow, which is one of the solutions offered by Flow Systems. We're a company very much focused on revolutionising international trade, finance and customs management. Basically, we're a software house in simple terms. Got about 50 colleagues, and we build solutions for clients of all different shapes and sizes. We excuse me, and we've got three main offerings. We've got OpsFlow, so it's a new age ERP CRM solution which can be connected to all of the main supply chain partners. We've got FinFlow. It's a trade finance ERP solution, and it streamlines the day-to-day operations for non-bank trade finance funds. My focus and my responsibility within Flow is looking after a solution called TradeFlow. It's a cloud-based solution, simplifies the international trade customs clearance and inventory management requirements, and provides businesses with absolute control over their trade operations. The platform's range of solutions makes it, we believe, easier, faster, cheaper for international traders to manage their customs requirements. And we can offer a range of solutions to our clients, which is kind of unusual. So we can work as a broker for an end user customer. We can sell our solution into brokers and freight forwarders to make their work more straightforward. And also, of course, we have a solution that end user customers can use too. So to today, AI-powered customs and VAT fraud detection. What we hope to show you today is how AI can help customs officials identify instances, situations where fraud is being committed, and how the use of this technology is becoming, if you like, the new normal in trade. Presenter today, as you can see, is Saurabh Goyal. He founded Flow back in 2017 and was a very early adopter of AI when building trade solutions. More than happy to host a Q&A session towards the end of the presentation, but it'd be kind of helpful just for the flow today, ignore the pun, for the flow today, if we can ask you to pop any questions that you've got in the chat, so we can have a look at those and circle back to them later on. So I hope that's okay. And so thanks to all of you for coming along today. Thank you for your time over the coming hour or so. And Saurabh, it's over to you.
Sure. Thank you, Neil. Neil, can I check? Can you see my presentation?
Yes.
Okay, great. So thanks everyone for joining today. My name is Saurabh. As Neil mentioned, I'm the founder and CEO of Flow Systems. Let me clarify, I'm not an AI expert, but we have been working in using AI for almost since our inception, since 2017. So you can consider me as a practitioner in AI. And the big difference we see between the early days like 2018 and now is that earlier, even using simple AI programs was quite a complicated exercise. It took a lot of time and tinkering to get it operational. And every time there was a change in the inputs, we need to deploy a software engineer to make appropriate changes in the machine learning program again, which made it very difficult to use AI in your day-to-day activities, and the return on investment was not there. But with the new age AI, especially the large language models, we see that all that plumbing work which is required has been simplified to a lot extent, and therefore projects are much quicker and the return on investment on your project is much faster. So we are quite excited about how we are using AI in our use cases, which is primarily international trading operations, customs compliance, and trade finance. And we are hoping that in today's session, we can give you some idea on how you can also use AI without too much of understanding about how these AI models work in your day-to-day operations. So again, I mean, AI is a very large field of knowledge. So we are not going to cover the entire AI field today. Within AI, we are talking about the large language models, which are all the rage, as you might have seen for the last couple of years. Within the large language model also, there's a specific class of large language model, which is called GPT, which stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer Model, which is relatively a new model which came, I mean, the first paper on it was published in June 2017. And OpenAI, which has published ChatGPT, which is the most popular commercial model out there, is based on the GPT model. So, in today's session, when we say AI, we are primarily referring to the GPTs, and within the GPT also we are referring to OpenAI. Most of the work which we have done internally is also on OpenAI, but I'm being told, and our engineers have been working on other open source large language models and commercial models. So there are open source models such as Llama. There's another commercial model called Claude, and I've been told that they are almost as good as OpenAI. So yes, though the work we are showing you today is based on OpenAI, but I'm quite sure that it is also applicable for all other GPTs out there. So the question arises that with any new technology, there's always a hype cycle where initially there's a lot of hype, and only later, when the technology kind of matures, then is the right time to use that technology for your operational activities. So the same question can be asked about GPTs, that why now? Are we not still in that hype cycle, and therefore we should wait for another couple of years before we start using it? And the answer to that question is no, in our experience, because large language models are almost as mature as they probably can be. There's another 6 months to a year kind of additional uh, maturity which would be happening in the coming months, but more or less they are at their peak. And the reason for them being at their peak is that large language models, by definition, depend on large corpus of literature or language or text available on internet. And most of the large commercial models have already consumed almost everything which is available in the open source uh, uh, domain. So if there is some content available on the internet which is openly available, then it is quite likely that these large language models have already consumed that content. And therefore, any additional learning is going to happen only if there is new content being produced. So from now onwards, the only additional learning would be uh, the new uh, language or content which human beings are producing, and it is available on the internet for these large language models to consume. So that is the reason why most experts believe that the LLMs are as mature as they can be, and the only incremental learning will happen going forward as new human generated content is available on the internet. Another good source to understand their maturity is a set of questions called uh, uh, GPQA. These questions are uh, based on expert level understanding of a certain field. So GPQA consists of thousands of questions on very specialized fields, such as say molecular biology or quantum physics, etc., etc. And only PhD level experts in those areas can answer those questions correctly. So if you take a random human being and ask that question or present those questions to that human being, the kind of response you will get, the correctness would be in the range of 0 to 1%. And if you ask a PhD level expert in that field, the response you will get is around 65% accurate. And if you can see most large language models, for example, GPT, in fact, this diagram also is a bit dated now, it's a couple of months dated. So GPT-4 was already performing at around 46% level. Claude 3 was performing at around 60% level. And GPT-5, which is expected to be coming out in the next 3 or 4 months, is expected to perform at 75% level, which would be exceeding these PhD level experts. So yes, I mean it is fairly accepted now that GPTs are quite mature, and therefore now is the right time to start using them. So why customs compliance is a ripe area for GPT usage? As I said, anything which has a large repository of text is a good field for LLMs to be consumed. Uh, and customs is one such area. So if you look at uh, UK customs, so HMRC, if you go to the HMRC website, you will see uh, hundreds of thousands of pages of text available over there. Depend on the customs procedures to be used, on different policies, on different consultations which HMRC does from time to time. The UK tariff code will have thousands of and thousands of pages on different types of commodity codes and what kind of VAT and duty should be applied, and the kind of trade agreements we have with different countries, etc., etc. So it's a very rich area when it comes to the content available out there, and GPT-4 has already consumed all that content, and therefore customs compliance is a useful area where GPTs can be used. Also, there apart from the regulatory bodies, you have lots of, say, for example, uh, compliance bodies and also legal bodies. So a lot of content is available by law firms on how customs compliance should be followed. So all that information has already been consumed by GPTs, and therefore they are quite good in customs compliance. So for today's session, we will I prepared like a case study, and the case study is assuming that, let's say I'm a junior officer, just joined HMRC, and I have been tasked to find some cases of fraud and make a recommendation to my manager that I've uh, discovered a fraud case and we should be investigating it further. So if I am in that kind of a situation, what are the inputs I have and what should I do in order to discover a fraudulent case? So the inputs usually I would have is I would have a completed uh, declaration, let's say an import declaration. So I have some documents with me in, say, a C88 or SAD format where a declaration has already been done. I would also have some supporting documents. So I would have the invoice submitted by the importer, the packing list submitted by the importer, and, say, the bill of lading. So I have these four documents: the final declaration and invoice, bill of lading, and packing list. And I'm required to investigate it further to see whether I can identify if this was a fraudulent declaration. So the easiest thing for me to do would be to upload all these documents, which are, say, in PDF format, in ChatGPT, which is easily available now. Or if you want a slightly more advanced version, you can pay 20 US dollars and you will get some more functionality over there, including ability to create your own enterprise space. And the benefit of creating an enterprise space is that, at least as per OpenAI, they would not share that information in further learning of the model itself. So yeah, so I have access to one such enterprise space, and I've uploaded these documents. And the simple question I'm asking is that I'm a customs officer. For the documents uploaded, can you help me find any discrepancies? Since this is a realistic case, we have to hide the name of the actual importer and exporter over here. Uh, so yes, LLMs are very good in comparing data sources across multiple documents and giving you any discrepancy around those documents. So yes, it has already started doing that work. It is saying that origin of goods, the customs declaration indicates that the origin country is Italy, but the bill of lading says that the port of loading was Durban, South Africa. So this indicates some kind of discrepancy. Also, the shipping route is from Durban to South Africa, whereas the declaration is from Italy to UK. So there is some problem over there. Uh, in order to do some more research, I have asked the LLM now that is it possible for you to check who are the importers, who are the directors of the importer, I mean, behind the importing company. Uh, no, sorry. I mean, that's a separate question. That's a question after this slide. So the question on this slide is whether the valuation declared is correct or not. And I'm asking LLM to actually go to the importer's website, if there is any, and check what kind of retail rates are there for the goods which they're importing. So yes, LLMs are also now quite good in browsing internet. Earlier, that kind of facility was not there. So in this case, ChatGPT is actually going to the shoe shop, which is the importer, and it is starting to collect the retail prices of the goods which they have declared in their packing list. Uh, the next thing I have asked the system to do is to go to the company's house, check the directors of the company, and see whether any of these directors are included in any, say, sanction list. So you can also do conditional browsing where you are asking the system to go to site one, collect some information, and based on the information collected on site one, then go to another site and do some more work. So it is able to do that. So it is telling me that I have found the directors of the company and I'm looking at the UN sanctions list. Uh, and if you see the answer at the bottom of this slide, it says that after manually searching in the OFAC sanction list, there were no matches found for the directors in that list. Now, this is where it's a bit difficult to see whether this is a genuine uh, search result or uh, ChatGPT is just making up something to just to please me that I have done my job and everything is fine. So, in order to validate this further, you may have to do some more uh, fine probing. So, for example, I'm asking that can you give me an example of someone who is actually on the OFAC list? And can you also give me the URL link for it? So this time it is saying that yes, there is an individual which is actually on the OFAC list because of some Iranian sanctions against him or her. So yeah, it seems that yes, it can actually go to the website and check for not just negative cases but also positive cases. Uh, so yeah, so that gives me some added confidence that the information which it is giving to me is not made up. Uh, the next question I'm asking is that it was able to go to the website of the importer and check for the average retail price. And I'm saying that usually the average retail price has a markup of 30%. So is it possible to for you to do a rough calculation on how much underreporting of the valuation has been done by this particular importer? So now you can see that it is performing some calculations, which is a very kind of a surprising side effect of large language models. They were primarily trained on language, uh, but because maths, some people claim is also derived from language. I mean, the sociologists claim that we would not have been able to do mathematics if we were not good linguists. So yes, based on whatever learning it has, it can also do a bit of mathematics, and the calculations are quite all right actually. So it is able to give me a fair bit of understanding of how much under valuation probably this importer is doing. So based on all the work which I've been doing, and I have kind of summarized the work which we have done in the previous slide. You will find that when you are dealing with the LLMs, sometimes they hallucinate, sometimes they do not give you the right information. So you have to gently nudge them in the right direction. So I spent about an hour today morning actually with the LLMs to come to this bit of information. And now I'm asking it to summarize all the work which I have done uh, with the LLM over the last 1 hour. So it is now summarizing the information, which is giving me the discrepancies found across the documents and the import duty underreporting, also VAT underreporting. And it is telling me that this seems to be a high risk score based on the discrepancies it has found. And the total additional revenues for HMRC, if we pursue this case, would be around 160,000 British pound. This is before you impose any fines or any other penalties on this importer. So yeah, this is a good example of how you can use ChatGPT in case. But the problem is that we were able to identify only one. I mean, it took us about an hour to analyze all the documents and determine whether a fraud has been committed or not. The current levels of import declarations, even at HMRC, would be in the tune of, I would say, 5 to 6 declarations per second on peak days. So yeah, you need more time efficiency in what you're doing. So one easy way of doing it is that you can, after every session with ChatGPT, you can ask it to summarize everything in a prompt, so that the next time you don't have to spend an hour with LLMs. And next time you get the same situation where you have these 4 incoming documents, you just upload those documents and also the prompt which you have generated now. And it won't take you an hour then, it will probably take you a minute to get the output from ChatGPT. So, as a good practice, every time you're about to close your session or interaction with LLMs, ask it to summarize everything which has been done in this session as a prompt, which you can use for the next time. So now your time would be reduced from about an hour to about a minute the next time you will do this activity. But even a minute is not sufficient. I mean, we are talking about maybe 5 or 6 declarations every second, so which translates to roughly around 300 to 400 declarations every minute uh, on in peak times. So yeah, so now you would like to go to the next stage where yes, you have interacted with ChatGPT and you know that things are productive, but how do you scale it up to 300, 400, 500, 1,000 declarations a minute? And for that, you will have to then write your own programs. I mean, you can't interact uh, on ChatGPT and then uh, hope to get that kind of efficiency. So the good thing about LLMs is that they are very good in understanding and interpreting language, but they are even better in understanding programming, and they are even better programmers. And the reason for that is that programming is again a language, but in a very structured format. And many of these LLMs, particularly OpenAI, has been trained on GitHub, because GitHub and OpenAI both are controlled by Microsoft. And GitHub is one of the largest repository of programming or programs written in the public space. And LLM, OpenAI has been trained on it. So it has become an extremely good programmer. So you can actually ask it to write a program. And in this case, we say that it actually started writing a program in Python. It may not be in the first iteration, it may not be the best program, but in a few iterations, you can get a fairly good, decent program written. But a program is not a software. I mean, in order to get a full functioning software which is running on cloud and taking inputs from several of your data source within your organization, it will require a significant amount of software development. But in our opinion and the experience we have seen, it would crash your development time from, say, 9 months to 2 months, in our opinion, because the core programming which is required would be would be done by ChatGPT for you, and it would be quite efficient in our experience. You will have to do some software engineering around it in terms of hosting it on cloud and accessing data and data formatting, etc., etc. So yeah, so that this was an example where within a couple of hours you have uh, gone from uh, analyzing a few set of documents to writing a full-fledged software which can analyze up to say 1,000 documents per minute. Uh, so what did we learn from this exercise? So what we learned is that LLMs hallucinate. So uh, and this is very important to understand that large language models typically are trained to tell you a story. So whatever you ask them, they will look back at all the content they have used to train themselves. And at the end of the output is basically a story. So the story will make sense to you only if you have asked it the right question in the right context. So even a simple thing like 2 plus 2 is equal to 4, we were talking about mathematics, is not based on any mathematical calculations. It is not based on that ChatGPT is converting 2 into a binary format and then doing a binary sum and then converting it back into a decimal format and giving you the answer. It is basically telling you 2 plus 2 is equal to 4 because in all its content it has seen over the past, it knows that 2 plus 2 is equal to 4. Uh, but at the end of the day, it is what it has learned and what it is telling you. It is not doing any calculation itself. So hallucination is quite prevalent, and it is not that they hallucinate some of the time. They hallucinate all the time. Every question you ask, every information it presents to you is a hallucination. But those hallucination will make sense if you're asking the right questions in the right context and you are double checking the information presented to you. Also, what we have learned is that if the data is available on open internet, it is quite likely that ChatGPT has already consumed it. So even for simple things like what is the commodity code used in UK for leather shoes, it is not that ChatGPT will have to go and refer to the UK tariff website. That information is already in the knowledge base of ChatGPT. So you don't have to really provide additional information sources. You have to provide only additional sources if they are relatively recent, because this kind of learning is done, say, once or twice a year. And post that, if the information is available on internet, then it would not be available. So only recent information has to be provided to be browsed. Uh, And the most important thing is that at least until a few days back, GPTs were not able to understand the context in which you were asking the information because it never stored your previous session information and carried it to the next session. But since a week back, that problem is also resolved. OpenAI at least is now storing the memories. So if in the past you have told that I'm a customs officer, the next time you will log into the system, you don't have to provide that context. The system probably now knows that you are a customs officer and whatever question you are asking is from that context. Uh, unless you want to give it a new context and you now have a new role, you are working for a customs broker, then you may want to change the context of the question you're asking. And finally, I mean, a lot of people say LLMs are just tools, just any other new technology, and we are exposed to these technologies, new emerging technologies all the time. So it is just like any other technology, which is correct. It is like any other tool which you should be using in your day-to-day work. But the only difference is that for the first time in history of mankind, you have got a tool which can learn. So it is not like a static tool which is designed for a static purpose. It is a tool which can learn along with you. So it can learn about your context, about your requirements, about your conditions in which you are working, and it can learn from the interaction with you, and it can improve itself. So it's a tool which continuously improves itself based on the interactions which you are having with the tool. So that is the primary difference compared to any other static tool. So for customs domain, there are many use cases. In fact, many of these use cases we have been using internally. So it can do HS classification quite uh, with a quite high accuracy rate, given that the prompting has been done correctly. And if you want, you can look at my previous webinar where we have a use case where uh, you don't give any information about your product, but ChatGPT will just ask you questions, and within a series of like 7 or 8 questions, it will accurately figure out what is the product which you had in your mind, and it will also give you the right classification code for it. So it's quite an interesting kind of a gamification of classification that we were able to do, and you can check my previous webinar for that. Uh, It can prepare a declaration in a specific format for a declarant. It can automate end-to-end customer services processing. And as we saw in today's case study, it can help a customs authority in discovering fraudulent cases. So there are many use cases. Now, again, all of these use cases which we have demonstrated so far are basically prompting. So you prompt ChatGPT uh, uh, in the right direction, and then it is able to give you the right answer. So we believe that around 70% of all possible use cases can be done through prompt engineering itself, which is a very simple way of using LLMs. But if you want to go beyond that, then there are two sophisticated ways. The first way in the vertical direction is called RAG, which is basically you add additional content which is not available in open source and it is available only in the context of your organization. So you can add that additional content before the question is asked to uh, OpenAI. So for example, if you consider your emails as a large depository of classified content which is not available, of course, on open internet, and if you can vectorize your email into the same dimensions as that of OpenAI, then the next time if you ask a question, say that uh, please check whether this declaration is fraudulent or not, before this information is sent to OpenAI, it will also, the local system will first go to your vectorized email and search whether a similar declaration by a similar declarant had been done in the past or not. And if yes, then that information also will be added to the context of your original question and sent to OpenAI. So that is RAG for you. But there is another way, an even more sophisticated way of training the large language model, which is you take the original model. So you can take the original OpenAI model, which unfortunately is not open source now, but there are other open source model like Llama, etc. So you can take an open source AI model and then retrain it on the data which you have, which is a more sophisticated way of developing uh, a fine-tuned large language model only for yourself, which is slightly more expensive and it takes a little bit more computing resources. And it would also require trained machine learning engineers and data engineers to be working on this project. Unlike the unlike the prompt engineering, which any layman user can do, and RAG, which can be done with the help of any software engineer. But yeah, if you want to make a sophisticated solution for yourself, then these are the two directions in which you can go. So yeah, so the last slide from my side. So the takeaways are that LLMs and GPTs are invaluable tools for knowledge workers, and it is becoming essential to be used in your day-to-day operations. Not using LLMs would be akin to saying that I would not use Google to do any basic research for my work. So just like understanding how search engines work and using them was quite a hot skill in like 15 years back. Understanding GPTs and learning how to prompt them is the hot skill as of today for all for all knowledge workers. And this hot skill can be achieved in two ways. I mean, basically, you need to start thinking like the model so that you can ask them the right question. So if you have some experience in machine learning and if you can go through the model literature, that of course would be a great help. But that is not the only way you can learn how to prompt. The best way to learn how to prompt is to just start spending more and more time with these models. And after you have spent, in my opinion, uh, say a month interacting with them on a daily basis, you will have an intuitive understanding of what works for you specifically and what does not work for you. You would know what kind of questions you should ask where you would get a reasonably correct answer, and what kind of questions would give you a hallucinated answer. So that experience is important to get the personal sense of equilibrium where you can start relying on those answers. Uh, But yeah, but if you're using these GPTs in an organizational context where everyone across the organization is using it, and you're also exposing these to people outside your organization, like chatbots or uh, knowledge repositories where people outside the organization can also benefit from it, then it is important that there is a certain baselining of these GPTs being done across the organization. So that's where most of the consulting work, I think, by the likes of the top fours like your Deloitte and PwC would be done in the coming days on how to use GPTs across your organization. But again, if you have a good software team inside your organization, or if you want to take our help in doing that kind of work, we would be very happy to uh, be involved in that. So yes, that's it from my side. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask. So I think you can ask your questions in the chat, or you can raise your hand. There's a Q&A tab right at the top if you want to ask any questions over there.
Hi, Saurabh. This is Ted George. Can I ask a question straight?
Yeah, sure.
Yes, hi, Saurabh. No, thanks. Really interesting, this presentation. I had the good fortune also of seeing you doing another webinar where you took ChatGPT and used it in a different way as well. I'm just really fascinated if you could talk a bit more about this question of hallucinated data, because I must say you've really changed my mind about this. I always saw that as, if you like, almost the dirty little secret of AI, because a lot of people kind of thought it's like a super search engine, and they don't realize actually that it makes it up. But I like what you're saying is actually that's what it does. It can only hallucinate. So it actually comes back to the professional about how you use the tool. So I guess maybe if you could just talk a bit more about the pros and cons of hallucinated data, because it's actually not a negative. My understanding is if you use it wrong, it's disastrous. It means you cannot just hand it over to the computer. You really need to know the context yourself and interpret it.
Yeah, that's correct. And uh, I mean, these days there are a lot of disclaimers. So if you're asking a question about medicine or law or about rules and procedures to the generic, say, Chat GPT or an LLM, it will always come up with a disclaimer saying that please consult other sources or an expert before you consume this information which I'm presenting to you. Uh, but one other way of reducing the scope of hallucination is to define the context and define the boundaries in which you are asking the question. So if you, for example, when we uploaded the documents, the boundaries automatically decided that any answer which LLM should be giving to us is within the context of the documents which we have uploaded. You can further define those boundaries by clearly, explicitly telling ChatGPT that please answer this question only in the context of, say, UK HMRC. So which will define or limit the boundary. So the narrow you do your uh, boundaries, the better the accuracy of the answer. Because as you can imagine, I mean, the OpenAI ChatGPT has been trained on close to I don't know, 3 trillion bytes of data, terabytes of, probably more than that. Uh, so if the context and the localization is not set up, then it is all over the place. And in order to get uh, a definite answer, you need to first move the focus of the generic OpenAI to a particular area, and the more focused questions you will ask, the more relevant and probably less hallucinated answers you will get. And then you can also do some cross-checking of the answers. So you can ask ChatGPT itself to, before it gives the answer, it should cross-reference that answer to, say, uh, a particular site which you like. So it can do that also.
Thanks, that's great. No, I like the fact that you can get it to actually check itself as well. You don't have to do it. You just have to be thinking of the functions you have to tell it to do.
Yeah. I mean, you can always say that please present all the information with some kind of an accuracy score. based on 0 to 100. And then it will also do that job of giving you an accuracy score. Hopefully, it will not make up the accuracy score itself. So yeah, you'll have to give him some kind of an algorithm to compute that accuracy score. So your simple algorithm could be that please check at least 5 different websites and compare the data across those websites and then calculate the accuracy score for me.
That's great. Thanks.
So there's a question from Jen. Has fraud become more common over the last few months, years? Difficult to say. I would say that fraudsters are always looking for opportunities. So when do these opportunities arise? So in UK, for example, Brexit was a big change. The number of declarations had gone up multiple times post Brexit. So it is quite likely that fraudsters would have used that as an opportunity to underreport their import and VAT duties, because at the end of the day, there are human beings on the customs compliance side who are checking this declaration. So that could be, I mean, whenever there's a change of regime, change of processes, change of systems. So recently, again, UK went through a massive change of systems from chief to CDS. And every time there is a bit of disruption, fraudsters will take that as an opportunity to do what they do. So yes, in UK, it is likely that in the last few years, the cases have gone up. And also because the traditional machine learning models which are being used by customs authority, they are based on historical data set. And sometimes when the supply chains change themselves. So for example, in COVID times, there was a lot of uh, supply chain which was disrupted. So for example, things which were usually coming from, say, European countries stopped, and maybe that was instead coming from China. And in those instances, there is not enough historical data for traditional AI to refer to. So yes, when supply chains are disrupted, at that time also the fraudulent cases might go up. And when I say supply chain disruption, it means changes of the usual routes through which the trade is happening, change in the usual suppliers through which imports are happening, etc., etc. Yeah. So yeah, if there are no more questions, then yeah, we can probably close this call. But I'm happy to answer any questions which you have. If you are involved in international trading, either you're a freight forwarder, customs broker, or or you work in a customs compliance agency yourself. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me separately, and I'll be happy to have a one-on-one session with you to explain more about the work which we are doing internally and how it can help you.
Yeah, thanks, Saurabh. That was great. I say welcome along, everyone. Thanks for your time this morning. A copy of all the slides will be available in the presentation to you following the meeting. But as Saurabh said, do let us know if there's any further queries or questions you have. This will be part of a continuing series, so we'll be sure to let you know when we schedule the next meeting and the content summary. So thanks again, and we hope you all have a great day.
Thank you, everyone. Cheers. Bye bye.